the glory of Baghdad and its catastrophic fall. Beginning in the 8th century, a revolutionary era bloomed all over the Middle East, and it is referred to as the Golden Age of Islam. It was the era of unparalleled Islamic prosperity, unprecedented blooming of knowledge, and new focus on intellectual and cultural growth. The wondrous city of Baghdad was the center of the thriving civilization, and it rapidly emerged as the world hub of learning and advancement. Baghdad, patron of the Abbasid Caliphate, was a throbbing metropolis of an astonishing 1 million people. Its boulevards buzzed with men of intellect, merchants, and innovators from every corner of the known world, all in pursuit of light of knowledge. There were innumerable libraries, with letter-by-letter copied texts and fresh material, that were standing monuments, waiting to be consumed by the brilliant intellects that swarmed the Muslim capital. Arguably the most sought-after of these willing foreigners' destinations was the legendary Beit al-Hikmah, or the House of Wisdom. As much as it was the city's largest library, it was an enormous research facility, center of translation, and focal point of scholarship. Its astounding influence initiated present progress in all conceivable fields: aesthetics, literature, astronomy, mathematics, medicine, philosophy, and so on, with the Abbasid rulers openly subsidizing philosophers, scientists, and scholars, inviting them to relocate to the city to study and develop. It truly did seem to be true that there was nowhere to go but upwards. The Golden Age of Islam was truly a marvel to observe. Regrettably, as the saying goes, all good things must ultimately come to a stop. In the final days of Baghdad's splendor, the Abbasid Caliphate declared the city its capital. The Abbasids were the third Islamic Caliphate to rule the Middle East following the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad, having taken over in the mid-8th century by overwhelming the Umayyad Caliphate. Their appellation from a prophet's uncle, Abbas, and their empire expanded so fast that it moved from Arabia to the Levant and Syria, all along North Africa, through Iraq and beyond. The Abbasids were powerful, but their reign was soon going to be challenged in a harsh and sudden way. Say hello to the Mongols. Completely opposite to the urban, settled Abbasids, the Mongols were a pastoral, nomadic people. They rarely stayed in one place, and so constantly came into contact with settled societies, such as the Caliphate. During these encounters, the Mongols were notoriously noted for a quite unique and fairly savage combat tactic. Having been so famously difficult to deal with as to have the Great Wall of China constructed to bar them from entry, the Mongols were the very essence of terror tactics. If anyone ever heard the ominous clang of pots and pans, or the ominous jangling of bells, they knew they were in for a spine-tingling experience as the next target of the Mongols. Though they usually granted the chance for surrender to the native leaders before attacking, if denied, wholesale destruction and carnage normally followed. Though not settlers themselves, they also wanted to conquer land to provide space for their roving peoples. And thus, when Temujin the Man united the Mongol tribes, split apart, and took on the title of Genghis Khan, a chain reaction was created that would eventually conclude on the charred ground of Baghdad. Hulagu, who was the grandson of Genghis Khan, acceded to the throne when the Mongol Empire truly initiated its most aggressive expansion. Hulagu Khan spread his authority through Syria and worked tirelessly to secure his grip on the lands of the Ilkhanate of Persia. This initial ambition brought the Mongols into direct conflict with a formidable Shiite group known as the Assassins, whom Hulagu managed to vanquish after a challenging campaign. His next obstacle, looming large and seemingly unaware, was the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad. Year after year, and with each successive caliph, the Abbasids had deteriorated, both politically and militarily. They had for a long time been used to making tribute to the Mongols themselves, but the current caliph, al-Mustasim, was not that concerned about what these payments meant. However, the caliph had heard rumors of Hulagu's expansionist designs and ambitions, but al-Mustasim, to this day a topic of speculation, could not be informed of the actual danger which approached him. This dangerous complacency was in part due to advice from his Grand Vizier Ibn al-Alqamai. The problem with this brilliant vizier was that he is widely suspected of having had his own agenda, one that tragically conflicted with his master's. It is supposed that, through outrageous deeds and decrees, the Caliph had gravely irritated a great many of his Shia Muslim subjects, including his Grand Vizier. Many historians would have us believe that the great Caliph advisor himself not only welcomed the possibility of a Mongol invasion, but invited them inactively. Whether this happened or was merely a convenient myth is still debated, but certainly the Caliph, for whatever motive, grossly underestimated the will and power of the ambitious Mongols. Al-Mustasim's first sign that his formidable opponent, Hulagu, was in earnest would have been when the Mongol Khan penned the Caliph a letter demanding his and the city of Baghdad's capitulation. Remarkably, it is said that Caliph al-Mustasim counter-threatened with an ultimatum of his own: return to where you originally came from, or lay siege to this city. The cause of the problem was that the Caliph actually thought that the whole of the Muslim world would definitely come to the defense of Baghdad if the Mongols ever dared to attack Abbasid capital. This, he was now going to find out, was appallingly untrue. Thus, to the complete amazement and horror of the Caliph, on the 29th of January 1258, the Mongols laid siege to the grand city of knowledge and the epicenter of the Islamic Golden Age. The Abbasids possessed a poorly organized and ill-equipped army, unprepared to face their well-prepared adversaries. Unlike the Caliph's hopes, however, the remainder of the Muslim world was half-hearted in its response and was little of any practical use. And the Mongols were a marvel of coordinated warfare. It was only a matter of a few days before Al-Mustasim shifted from his previously obdurate position and asked to open negotiations with Hulagu. The Mongol Khan, as was his cruel temperament, denied the requests of the Caliph. When the Mongols made a gesture of peaceful surrender, it was an offer once and only once, and once was already in the past. The siege persisted, unrelenting and merciless. On February 10th, 1258, Caliph al-Mustasim yielded unconditionally. The Mongols concurred, and nothing happened during the next 3 ominous days. The people of Baghdad waited by the hour in apprehension, but their terror would prove to be nothing more than preparation for the horrible events that lay ahead. On February 13th, Hulagu and his army entered Baghdad. The Mongols gave but one warning on entry to the city, and it was addressed to the Nestorian Christians only, to whom Hulagu himself addressed the following words: "Lock yourselves in your church and do not come out." It was his pledge in good conscience, likely reinforced by the fact that his own mother and favorite wife were Nestorian Christians, that if they would remain within their church, his soldiers would leave them intact. For the rest of Baghdad, however, mercy was not granted. There followed a week of unimaginable loot and slaughter. Even the nobles of the city were not spared. About 3,000, in fact, were executed. As for the Caliph, some dark theories exist as to his fate. One of these holds that al-Mustasim was imprisoned in a room surrounded by his own treasure and gold. According to the travels of Marco Polo, Hulagu taunted the Caliph, "Eat of thy treasure as much as thou wilt, since thou art so fond of it." It is then supposed that al-Mustasim actually perished of starvation, surrounded by the wealth he had amassed. But this contradicts yet another common myth, which states that Hulagu believed that shedding the blood of royalty on the ground of Baghdad would have apocalyptic consequences in the form of natural calamities. So he had Caliph al-Mustasim rolled up in one of his own expensive carpets so that there would be no spill, and then had him trampled to death by horses. Whatever the precise motive, the last Islamic Golden Age, ruler and magnificent capitals, his mother met her horrific end, along with the city she called home. Death toll of the entire tragedy is estimated to have ranged from an unbelievable 90,000 to 1 million. including the brave army that had futilely defended the city border, and many civilian men, women, and children. Baghdad itself was largely razed, and the rest was burned and reduced to ashes. It's said the river Tigris ran red with blood from the slaughter. That was before the conquerors began to dump hundreds of thousands of books and manuscripts into the river. The Tigris, the witnesses attest, soon turned black with the ink of the irretrievable volumes that would never again be read. House of Wisdom and all the precious contents of it, from today on, were no more. The siege and subsequent sack of Baghdad in 1258 was a defeat for the Abbasids, certainly. It was a greater one, even, than a defeat for the Muslim world in general. In fact, it was a sorrowful calamity on the whole human race. A golden age, an epoch of unparalleled prosperity, learning, art, and more had been brought to a disastrous close. There are 500,000 books no one is ever going to read again, their insights forever lost. Centuries worth of possible learning and development that never got to happen, at least not the way they might have. The fall of Baghdad was the fall of the thinking capital of an expanding world, a magnet to people everywhere who trudge for days on end just to learn at its House of Wisdom. And it is a profound tragedy that, sad to say, too many of us have now forgotten.